Let's see. Okay, let's see. Zoom is here. Slideshow here. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, I was seeing it and then I just disappeared. Or you close it?
No. It's like here is saying that I am screen sharing. It just disappeared.
Okay, right now it's blank. What? Okay, right now it's dark. It's a blank screen.
It's right now it's a blank screen. Let me try. Let me stop and share it again. So let's see. What about now?
Yes, what I'm saying is you are sharing the screen.
Yeah.
We can see the screen, but the screen is darkened out.
Oh, it's nothing is showing up.
Yes, but you've shared your screen. We can see you are sharing something.
Oh, that's strange. Let's try it once again.
But before it showed the black side, I think initially it had some details on it.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, let's try the other monitor, the other screen, the other display. Or maybe if I unplug the external display, but let me try this first.
That is superb.
Now it's appeared.
Yes.
Oh, perfect then. Yeah, it's I don't know. Okay, it's because there's all these controls in the screen. But yeah,
Will be
so I'm ready. You guys can tell me where I can start or.
I think you can just start. If we have any other person who would want to join the call, we have made the admission to be open, so anyone can join the call.
Enjoy and open. So okay, so then starting. My name is Cauê de Moraes Vestena. I am the president, a part of the Mapeadores Livres chapter of the Youth Mappers Network, and also I am a PhD student at the Federal University of Paraná. So today I'm going to do my presentation here at the State of the Map Africa. It's sadly I couldn't make it to Yaoundé, so thanks for the opportunity to be presenting online. Okay, presenting remotely. So the presentation about the accessibility mapping of footways using Openstreetmap, it's divided into three parts. So the first part is the introductory part that got the motivational part of it. The part two is where we speak about the mapping of the geometries of the sidewalk networks, and also the third part is about the mapping of the attributes. Okay, let's see. I think that I was not sharing video. Now I think now it's the video. I think it's better. Okay. So the presentation is always available in the interactive form, and it's always been passing through some updatings. So you can always check this link to see the latest version of the presentation. And okay, let's start then. What exactly is accessibility? Okay, so let's go with some definition about that came from the U.S. Department of Education for Civil Rights. And as for something to be accessible that means that a person with disability will be afforded to the opportunity to acquire the same information, engage in the same interactions, and enjoy the same services as a person without disability in an equally effective and equally integrated manner with substantially equivalent ease of use. Or this is the thing, a person with everyone being universally able to have the opportunities to enjoy and participate on the same services on the city and everything around, you know. So let's talk about the thing about the law enforcement of accessibility. In some countries, accessibility is also a law with law enforcement. So it's a right for to have accessibility is part of being a citizen. So I wasn't able to find a map saying where it's allowed or not, but there's this map of the United Nations where you have whether the countries have joined the protocol for the Convention on the Rights of people with disability. Okay. So it's like this. Like the ones in red are the ones that went with the full protocol, and the blue ones only the main part, and the light blue ones the only with the complementary part. So we can talk about accessibility in such a way that is like more straightforward or less formal. We can say that accessibility is basically the right to the city. So many people say in a like a very bad way that why all those measures for accessibility if we are not seeing people with disabilities all around. Okay, this happens a lot because many times they just can't walk, they just can't displace around because the lack of accessibility. So you can see the accessibility as basically the right to the city. So if you have accessibility, you can enjoy the city, you can live the city. Otherwise, it's not meant for everybody. Okay, so accessibility is a universal question. So everyone is put on jeopardy in a new environment that lacks accessibility, and it's not only for permanent disabilities or conditions, but also for example, a person that is carrying a child will be facing problems in the absence of accessibility, like a pregnant woman, or For example, someone that it's a temporary user of wheelchair, for example, or even someone with a stroller. Okay. So let's speak about regulations. I'm bringing the case of Brazil. So there's an entire section with the Brazilian Committee of Regulations, and it is on this part. Okay, so it's been discussed by a very large committee. So in this regulation, we have sorry because that's in Portuguese, but it's more for to showing up the illustrations. So it have all the measures, all the measurements that are minimal for an environment to be considered accessible. So you need to have at least 90 centimeters for a person in a wheelchair to pass, to traverse a path. Okay. There's, for example, to doing rounds, there's all the minimal measurements that you may need for it. Okay. So, for example, if you wanna do like this, you need also these specific measurements, okay? And it's interesting because in the regulation, there are all the measurements about the reach that a person in a wheelchair may have. You have the ranges, for example, to install like power sockets on the wall, like the thing that turns light on and off. I forgot the name in English. You have all the ranges for to install it at a home that or an environment that is meant to be accessible. There's also the regulations for the tactile pavings. So you have all the measures, all the displacement between consecutive parts of the plate, and so on. Okay. And for example, there's the regulations for ramps. So you not only have a maximum slope for a ramp to be deemed to be considered as accessible, but you also have a maximum horizontal displacement. Because even though it's a ramp is in an accessible slope, one going with manual propulsion couldn't be going forever in that ramp. So you need to have like some sections for resting. Okay, so you won't be end up in danger or too tired. And then we are seeing what would be the ideal sidewalk layout. Okay, so for urbanistic purposes, this is what is planned, what is generally put on environments that were planned. So the thing is that you have this stripe that's meant for access and adapted the parcels and the houses with the street. Or shops or anything, you need to have a free lane that is like the name is saying, free lane, and all the street furniture must be after. And it's interesting because all this street furniture also acts as security measure for the pedestrian. So if you have a car that got out of control, it would hit that tree and not a pedestrian. Okay. We also have the regulations for ramps. So we have like 3 types of ramps, like a crosswalk in level. We have the classical ramp. So you need to go from one level to below and then upwards again. Okay, so in the end, this is like the most accessible one. And if you have like a very narrow sidewalks, you have this kind of ramp that you can install. And it's interesting because the regulation is always evolving. I just forgot to translate here, but the thing is that in 2015 it was like this, but it used to cause some floods here, some flooding here. Okay, and then we have this adaptation. So there's also the regulatory part for additional signage, like for example for sound sound signals for the blind, or even vibratory signs for the blind. Okay. So let's talk about good practices and concepts and stuff about the regulations of accessibility. Okay, so it's interesting because accessibility is like it's an old concern. I have the thrillsome experience of being at the city of Caral at Peru. It's one of the eldest settlements on that part of the world. It's like from 5,000 years ago, and they already have these parts to rest to go from the below parts to the upper part of those pyramids. Okay. So let's show some examples of good samples of sidewalks. For example, the neighborhood of Madalena del Mar in the city of Lima. So you have like this free lane, totally free lane. Okay, you have and then you have the services part where you have, for example, parked cars, parking for cars that are also a security measure for the pedestrian. You have the trees that help out on rainfall water to be drained with the drainage, and makes for a more pleasant urban environment. Okay, and you also have the ramps with these kind of stripes for the blind. And it's interesting because we have this that is called the curb cut effect. So when we do when we design stuff in the most possible universal way, we made things better for everyone. Okay, so that's the thing. If you made a ramp, it's not only the people with the disabilities that will be using that ramp. It will be everyone. People on bikes, or even someone that is just with a shop market carriage, okay, or people with a stroller and so on. Okay. Then when we think about the SDGs, the goals for sustainable development for the United Nations, we have that this disability inclusive agenda. So we can listen that we can see that considering the 17 SDGs, we have like we have like many of them that are related, that when we can use the concept of accessibility, or where accessibility is fundamental for them to be achieved, for them to be reached out. So for example, we have like the number 4, that is education of quality. It cannot be done without the universal inclusion. We have the number 8, that is decent growth and economic growth, that can't be done without universal inclusive and full access to the job market, mainly for people with disabilities. For the number 10, that is to reduce inequalities. We can't achieve it without obviously including people with disabilities and everyone. But the thing that brings us more to the OpenStreetMap and open mapping brings us more directly to the open mapping world. It's the number 11 that says that is about the sustainable cities and communities. Okay, so for example, we need to create accessible environments on many places where we didn't have accessible environments. So that is the thing. We can use map data to help on this, and we are looking forward on how to do that in the presentation now of today. Okay, and there are other goals that are also helped by pedestrian mobility, because it's to being a pedestrian, it's being inactive displacement. So we are promoting the public health and the global well-being among the population. Okay, and also pedestrian displacement. It's a non-pollutant way of displacement. We are also promoting for the climate action part. So we are with endorsing, fostering pedestrian mobility. We are helping on climate issues and public health issues. Okay. But then, okay, we talk about I told you guys about things on an ideal world of the best thing that we could maybe see being done. But what about reality in the end? Okay. So first of all, we have some memes. It's like to have it's sad in the end, but we can use humor also as a way of scrutiny of the reality. Okay, so it's like people say that the hell is full of good intentions, is like this. Okay, or saying that on that particular city at the right side, it's like an extreme sport to being a person with disability. Okay, or for example, okay, yeah, for sure, it's an accessible toilet, yeah, or like this, okay, this adaptation, yeah, that would work surely. Okay, or like this, for example, yeah, if you wanna get hurt, or for example, like this ramp that wheelchair friendly. Okay, so we can show also some pictures to portray the neglect that we see every day in our society. So this is the case that happens a lot there at Brazil. I'm here living in Italy for 6 months, but in my country, sidewalks are generally terrible. They are horrible. So we have like the lack of accessibility. It's a pain in the ass for people with reduced mobility. So they face these kind of issues every single day. Or for example, they have to endanger themselves. They put them in jeopardy because you have like shitty sidewalks. And this is even for high level athletes, for example. The other very common thing is like people there's also this not permanent barriers for accessibility. And they also exists a lot, like people parking cars inside on sidewalks. That happens a lot there in Brazil. And look, something that maybe be seen as not a large step can be very difficult, can be very challenging for people with disability. with disabilities. Okay. And the thing is, if you have just a part of the path that is inaccessible, the whole path would end up being not accessible. Okay, so you have to have universal coverage of accessibility, because a single part of the way that lacks accessibility, it's ends up making not viable the pathway. Okay, so we can see ableism that is the prejudice against people with disability in all its shapes. Okay, so we have like even uh, terrible and unacceptable sentences like this, and like horrible things of like these ones, but we can also see like things that saying, oh, you're an angel, you're a hero about all these in all this condition, you've been such a brave person. But people with disability, they just want to experience reality in a normal way. They just want the barriers to be kept out. So in order for them to not having to like do this kind separation in a daily basis. Okay, so the people come with this kind of speech, oh, you're such a heroic, but they most of them don't want to be heroic, and it's actually sad in the end that they have to do such an effort just to do regular things because of the lack of accessibility. So they are not the ones to obviously not blame, but for to like praise a lot, uh, because actually is the environment that is the one for to be blamed, is the public sector that is the one to be blamed. Okay, so you can read about more of this on this article on Wikipedia called inspiration porn. It's very interesting about this kind of speeches. Okay, so the thing is, don't be an ableist person. Okay, so now after all this very introductory part, we are going to be delving on maps, going back to maps, like yeah, starting this part of why mapping. Okay, so we have like capacities that were unlocked by means of detailed mapping. Okay, so we have in first time the ability to report. So a map where you have the current conditions, the actual conditions, you can do like public scrutiny and diagnosis. So you can file like you can blame for with more property if you have like, oh, look at here, our accessibility network is terrible. Okay, so we have like this photo that is very symptomatic. So we have like this pathway, but that maybe would be accessible, but we don't have a ramp here. Okay, so I made like this funny joke, like breaking news, panic in Curitiba, accessibility doesn't seem to be a priority for the public sector, for the municipality. Okay, so the second thing that we enable is we enable for optimization. Okay, so we can compute the best already pathway, the best thing that we can do with the situation that we got in the present. Okay, because many times the shortest path isn't the most accessible pathway. Okay, and we can also do them planning, so we can see the pain points in the city. We like we do diagnosis with the city, is like the city got a disease that is the lack of accessibility. So you can see the critical points, and we can reduce costs, we can optimize the public money by the use of cartography, by the use of map data, and obviously open map data, okay? So I present you my project that is called Open Sidewalk Map, that is like a version of using OpenStreetMap data that have the pedestrian network mapped in detail. Okay, but it's not only features the web map, but it features other tools to do a pedestrian network management. Okay. So we can also show like questions about design. So for example, we have like the different thing where we are planning routes that really have the way that pedestrians displace. Like this is like saying that basically it's the same thing to walk on the right or left side of the sidewalk. That isn't true, and most of the time pedestrians didn't walk on the road intersections. We use like crossings, okay? And it's not the same thing to walk from the left and the right side of the sidewalk, and the conditions changes a lot. So for example, in this case, the accessible path is this one and not the shortest one, okay? We already have some OpenStreetMap based applications that are focused on accessibility. So for example, we have the wheel map that got like the if a shop or kind of public space can be deemed as accessible, can be considered accessible. We also have the modality on open route service for wheelchair displacement, where we got the score of accessibility for each part of the pathway. So now let's go for the part 2. I think that I'm sharing the whole screen. So I can now go for the part 2. Let's make the 2 and 3 ready. So Walter, are you still seeing my screen? Just to check. Walter? Hey? Well, here seems that is live. Walter?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just checking that you're still seeing my screen, because I had to switch for the second part of the slides that is in another presentation. So it's fine, yeah?
Yes.
Perfect. So now let's go into part 2. So remembering that this presentation is split it up in 3 parts. So we're now going through the second part. Okay. So when we map for when we are going to map on OpenStreetMap for accessibility, which kinds of geometries are we going to map? So we have the sidewalks, we have the crossings, and the curb access points. Okay. So the thing is, like, first of all, we have more than one way to map sidewalks, for example, in OpenStreetMap. So we have two valid, still considered valid schemas to map sidewalks on OpenStreetMap. So the first one is as a simple tag of the street. So we have saying that the sidewalk both right, left, or no, to say that there are or there isn't a sidewalk, or as a separate geometry where you draw the pathway where the sidewalk actually exists. And for the crosswalks, they can be as a tag of the street saying about the crossing, or as a point, like a single point here, or as a line that creates a topological relationship between the sidewalk and the street. So it's a line that represents the crossing and got the features of that crossing in it. And for access points is the same. The access point is somewhere that you can have a ramp or not have a ramp. So in the end, it's like where you can go from the street to the sidewalk. Okay, so it's the same like if you have the tagging schema, you may have ambiguity. Okay, so you don't know for sure if you have, or you can say if both sides got it, but you can put left or right on a note. Okay, so you have like the other schema where you put the curb interfaces or access points or curb cuts where you may have or may not have a ramp. Okay. So wrapping it up, both of all schemas are valid, but only tagging just to put the sidewalk as a tag got serious limitations. Okay. But still it's very useful to say where there's no sidewalk. Okay. Right. So then how those we map this infrastructure? Okay. So you not always don't even forget the words of the wise. Okay, like they would say, "You shall not map unless you have checked the imagery before." Okay, so it's a very important thing to do. So the first thing when you're going to edit OpenStreetMap data, always check the imagery before, always adapt the offset beforehand. Okay, so you're not ending up like, for example, drawing something that is very close by one road and very far apart from the other road. Okay, so listen to the wise. So okay, like here we have the schematized representation of a sidewalk network, where you have in purple the sidewalk, in green the crossing, and in orange the curb interface. Okay, so this would be, and also like here also the streets. Okay. So the first thing about to map, I just forgot this slide in Portuguese here. It was meant to be deleted. So the first thing about the making the sidewalk mapping, it's like simple. You just draw it and put the descriptive tags. So are the basic tags that say that element, that feature on OpenStreetMap is a sidewalk. And this could be done similarly for any footpath, but you just adjust the tags accordingly. Okay. So there's a GIF showing how to map it. So it's like there's not much of a secret. You just select the line tool, and you just looking with the help with the satellite imagery, you draw the pathway of the sidewalk. Okay, you always take care to not snap on stuff that are not snapped to the sidewalk. Okay, like for example, those addresses that they are not part of the sidewalk. Okay, and yeah, guys probably are better on drawing than me. I'm not a good hand drawer. I'm very bad doing like the drawing of manual edits. Okay, so then you have the geometry. You just put the tags. So highway, footway, sidewalk. If it was like a separate, it's a separate pathway, you just go with highway, footway. So it would be appearing like a footway. Okay, so very easy. An important thing is that you're always mapping the free walking lane. So it can be in the middle of the total length of the sidewalk, or it can be at the final part of it. You always map the traversable path, okay, the free walking lane, even though we sometimes got like, for example, a situation where you didn't have the proper layout for a sidewalk. Okay, and the other important thing is if the pathway changes, so does the geometry. In the case of more than one walkable path, so for example, you may say that this grass is still walkable, or that grass it's pretty walkable, but you always go with the most accessible. This is a paved one, okay? So if the pathway changes, you just adjust the drawing accordingly, okay? So the most tricky part of our mapping schema is this part of the crossings. So if you are doing a crossing, you always do like the 5 points, okay? So you need to create a geometry with 5 nodes in general, okay? So the crossing creates the connection between the sidewalks to the rest of the network. It comes to be a network, an actual network, okay? So it's connected to the streets, it's connected to the other sidewalks, okay? Okay, so the first node is a node on the sidewalk on other side. The second one, it's where you have the curb. It's where the sidewalk meets the street, where you are in the transition for the sidewalk to the street. Okay. The point C is a connection, topological connection between the sidewalk and the road. Okay. And the D is a connection between the sidewalk and it's not a connection, it's between the sidewalk and the street again, is like the point B, but on the other side, and E is the same as A, but on the other side, okay? So let's show also that there's a varying schema of sidewalk, okay? So of crossings. So you have the market crossings. We may have market crossings and crossings with traffic signage, okay? So this is the full schema, okay? Then here's a small gift showing how to draw it. So it's same thing. You just select the line tool, and you just go there and put the characterization. It's interesting because you can copy these tags and just paste in other ones. It would maybe make it even quicker to edit lots of them. So again, you put like point A, you put point A on one side, then point B at the curb, then point C at the street, point D at the curb at the other side, like here, and point E at the sidewalk at the other side, okay? And in the end, you can also straighten down the crossing for it to become more attached to reality, because most of crossings are straight paths, okay? And then you can tag B and D. You just select them and put the tag barrier equals curb. If for some reason it then were automatically deleted, you can just recreate them, just put them above the line once again. So with the barrier curb, we are saying that, okay, this is a pedestrian interface, okay? The tag can be misleading because sometimes it doesn't even have a curb, but this is the standard on the Openstreetmap community. It maybe would be better if it was like access point equals high curb equals a lowered curb, flush curb, or no curb. In my opinion, it would be better, but this is the standard that we have for now, and it's widely adopted. Okay. So now showing you guys, you just go there, select. Sometimes ID have the suggestion, so you just go there and put there, or you can just go there on ID, go select the point, just select point. It will be without tags, and put the tag barrier equals curb. Perfect. It's very simple scheme. So what happens when there's no sidewalk? That happens sometimes. So then we use the tagging schema. So the sidewalk is a tag because we are saying that there's no sidewalk. So this is, for example, highway residential, and we put sidewalk equals no. Okay. And if we have, like, for example, just on one side, okay, so we can have the sidewalk like drawn here, okay? So we can say that in the other side, there's no sidewalk. You can see this if there's sidewalk only on this left side, we say sidewalk left, and that means sidewalk right no, okay? It means the same thing of sidewalk no, right no. And the same thing for the other side, okay? So when you finish editing, always check for warnings, okay? So the most common issues that arise is the absence of tags and the absence of topological connections, okay? So you may check that if you didn't only draw a line and forgot to put the tags, or if you forgot to connect the lines properly with each other, okay? Sometimes you got like complex crossings. I forgot to translate this, but the thing is, in case of doubt, ask for help. And if you look at with attention, you're going to see that is just the common schema, but just repeated 3 times. So instead of having 15 nodes, we have 13, because 2 of them are shared twice, once, okay? They are shared on once, okay? So there's important sources for this material. That was the work of Lorenzo Stucchi that started all of this with the mapping of sidewalks. So I'm very grateful for his work, that it was a Kickstarter for mine. So let's go for the part 3. But before it, we may check few stuff. Okay. Okay, just a second. Yeah. So what if all of that could be done automatically? Okay, so I developed a plugin for QGIS that is available on the QGIS plugin repository. So you can go there and download it and use it. And if you find any issues or bugs, you can just go to the repository on GitHub and file an issue that I'll be glad to answer and try to address the issue. Okay. So this is the interface of it. When you are like going through it, it just freezes the buttons that are not useful. And when I click like here, it will be showing the next step. So it guides you through the process. So here's a small demo. So we have like an area. It's in Portuguese and in English, okay, but as you saw here, it's fully in English, okay. But this presentation is also in Portuguese and in English, so sometimes you find some stuff in Portuguese in the middle, okay. Sorry for that. So you go download the Openstreetmap data. It will download the data of the roads and the addresses. So you can put widths for the categories. It then draws the sidewalk according to some parameters. It draws the crossings and the access points. And in the end, there's an optional option for it to split the geometries. So you have for example, there in Brazil, it's very common situation that in the front of each house you got a completely different sidewalk. So this way it also makes automatically the splitting process. Okay. And that is it. Okay. It's the end of part 2. And I may ask you guys if you have any questions about this part of the drawing of the geometries. Okay, then let's go into the final part, to the part of where we talk about the tags. So this is the final part, remembering that you guys can always use the links, direct links to access to the most recent version of the presentation. So to map accessibility means to map a list, and there's an asterisk because some of them are not only concerning only accessibility, but also comfort and security. Because for proper pedestrian displacement, accessibility is the beginning, is the most basic part. Without accessibility, you have nothing. So it means to map less these things, but some of them are also about security and also about comfort. Okay, so for the sidewalks, we may map the surface material, and the condition or smoothness, okay? You also have the tactile paving presence, and also the slope and the width that are a little bit harder to measure, okay? For the crossings, the presence of traffic signals, the presence of traffic calmings, the surface material, and obviously the condition or the smoothness, okay? And for the curb interfaces, for the asset or access points, the type of ramp, if any, and the presence of tactile paving. So let's start. We are going to see each one of them, okay, with examples in each case. So the surface, it's a very generic one. You have a wide, I was meant to say that we have a wide range of values for the surface tag. So we have asphalt, concrete plates, paving stones, sand, grass, sand, earth, and many, okay? So let's tell of each one a little bit. So a little bit. So first of all, we have surface concrete, like that's generally cast in place, so it's made there. So have like this carriage with concrete, and then they just do there. It's in a good shape. It's like a very smooth surface. Yeah, and it's generally is better for thermal comfort than asphalt. Then we have paving stones, that you have lots of types of paving stones. And the basic thing about paving stones, and that they are relatively or sometimes very smooth paved surface with generally a flat top, okay? And generally the gaps are very narrow, and generally it doesn't have any kind of feeling, because they are attached using friction, and it's friction that keeps them attached, because they are paving stones. And we have this other category that is set, that the main difference between them and paving stones is that the top are not entirely flat, okay? So they are very not optimized for pedestrian displacement, and sometimes they are also getting some kind of feeling between them, okay? In the middle, we have the concrete plates that are generally heavy duty plates that generally are made of concrete with steel inside of it. So the plates are very resistant, they are very tough. So this generally makes that the fitting falls apart, but the plate still integer, still as a whole, okay? So surface set, and other that are less tricky, that's grass. There's lots of sidewalks made of grass there in Brazil. So for example, this one, it doesn't even have a curb. This one, you have a curb. Surface asphalt, that is like very smooth, but it's not that good if you are in a very high temperatures, because it absorbs too much of the solar radiation and become very hot. And okay, the next one is the smoothness, that for some people they are a little bit polemic, but it's basically a scale that goes from excellent to very horrible. And we also have the case of impassable, okay? So we have all these values that we may use for it. So let's go into examples. So for example, excellent are brand new surfaces such as concrete and asphalt, surfaces that are naturally very smooth. So you can only say that these kind of surfaces are really smooth. So this is the smoothness excellent, okay? I forgot to say that smoothness, it's the traversal difficulty level, okay, for wheels. So smoothness is a parameter that tells you about how hard is to traverse, and in the end, it reflects upon the rate of decay of that pathway, how much how much damage it suffered. That is very important for accessibility, access the level of damage. So then we have like smoothness goods. It's like surfaces such as asphalt with small cracks that are starting to become apparent, or for surfaces such as paving stones that are naturally less smooth. Okay, so you probably can't say that a sidewalk made of paving stones is actually, it's really, it's really smooth. Okay. So also we have smoothness intermediate, that is like this, where you have like surfaces that are naturally less smooth. They're naturally less smooth, or you starting to have some kind of damage. Okay, so this is the thing. You have a surface that naturally is not very smooth, even in a good shape. So it's like an intermediate smoothness. And there's bad smoothness, like you start to have real cracks, some mendings, vegetation amid the pathway. Okay, so this is like bad smoothness. Very bad, where you have like bigger cracks and the stones are starting to get loose. Okay. Horrible is where you got like unease for traversing. It becomes a little bit kind of dangerous, and where you have holes already. Okay, so generally the difference between beds, it's like larger cracks but not exactly holes, and horrible is where you are facing holes or so much unevenness, you know. So then we have also very horrible, where it's a pain to traverse, when the traversing can be like very dangerous, or like a bad experience. It can be like very unpleasant. So can you imagine like stepping there and get all wet, you know? And can even be dangerous. You can fall apart on some of these. For the elders, it's so horrible. And there's also the smoothness impassable. Impassable is not necessarily that you have that is in a bad condition. It's just because it's just because it's just because you got like a non-removable barrier. Then it's that. It's impossible because you just cannot traverse there. There's no way. And like this example, you have like good pavement. It's like very new here, but you can traverse. You have an obstacle that you can't remove, okay? Or like here that you just got this kind of stuff, or here where you got this landfill, okay? So, for example, you can figure smoothness as a function of surface and grade and material. So it would be like that, okay? So we have the decay considering the types of surfaces, and some surfaces are bound to a maximum level of smoothness. So unluckily, there's no way of constraining this on Openstreetmap. You can say, like, for example, ground have excellent smoothness that couldn't be, okay? Now moving to the curve, the barrier curve. So we have like these values for the tag curve. So we have like raised, that is without access point, is raised curve, lowered with ramp, flush, so leveled crossing, sidewalk and street at the same level. No, where it doesn't have the curb infrastructure. So it can be accessible or it can't be accessible. We may show some examples of each one of them. So the classic ramp is the curb lowered. Here we have example in Curitiba, my city, in Lima, and in Florence. Okay, so it's the basic one of the most commons that can be deemed as accessible. That you go from an upper level, you go a little bit down, and then you go a little bit up again. Okay, and there's also the curb flush, that you stay at the same level. That can be considered even more accessible for example, people that are users of wheelchairs and so. But there's a danger. Can you imagine like this? You are on the same, almost the same level, same surface, and you have no indication here, no tactile indication here. So a blind person can just come here and think that he or she is still on the sidewalk and be put in a huge deal of danger, okay? So that's why it's so important to map in a very detailed way, okay? Because different people got different necessities, okay? So a high curb, for example, can be an item of security for a blind person, because it splits the space on where is sidewalk and where is the street. But if it doesn't have the curb, it will be harder to know for sure, okay? And for example, for people walking with a stroller, it can be very a person in a wheelchair. Also, a high curb would be terrible, and a crossing like this would be amazing. But for a person with visual impairments, it can be extremely dangerous, okay? So then the example of curb no, that's basically where you didn't have the curb infrastructure, okay? So it can be accessible like on the right side, accessible for wheelchairs, but it's extremely dangerous for blind people. So that's the way that that's good. The tag is wheelchair, yes, not like disabilities, yes, or something like this, because it's harder to establish in a universal way. So this is the case for the absence of curb infrastructure is still accessible uh, with wheels. And here's not accessible because yeah, you have a bad condition here for the surface of this pathway, of this sidewalk. Okay. And the classic and very common curb raised, that is when you just doesn't have any kind of ramp for accessibility. So as I told, even though it's terrible for people with that are using that are, for example, with a stroller or using or wheelchair users, you know, for blind people, this is an element of security because you have a difference. You can see where you have the when you are this, whether you are on the sidewalk or whether you are on the street. So there's also the half raised curb, that it's the curb rolled, that it's generally not really accessible, so you can put the tag wheelchair limited because it's a ramp that's generally meant for cars. Okay, so there's this value that is curb rolled. Okay, and now we're going to tactile paving. Is generally it's a Boolean one, so or you have it or you don't have it. Okay, some crossings feature tactile paving. That's such a nice feature. Okay, and generally you have the two values that imports the most. It's yes to say that exists or no to doesn't exist. There's also the incorrect, okay, and there's also the contrasted, like this one, because some people have not a full degree of visual impairment, so they can still see contrast. So it's good when you got contrast, because it's even better when you got contrast. That would be helpful. Okay. And there's the width that is uh, sometimes it's better to split because you always have to map the usable width for the free lane. Okay, so yeah, it's generally it's better to split. Okay, so it's like that. Perfect. And yes, sometimes you have to split, like pick a node like here, and like this part got this width, and this until here got this width, and from here to there also this width. Okay, so you generally pick up you can measure it locally with a measure tape, for example. Measure tape. Okay. And yeah, meters, please. No foot, no inches, no yards. No, just no. Always use meters. Okay. Meters. Okay. So okay, sometimes you can subdivide in different stretches. So for example, from like here, and we split in 5 parts, and in A to B it's 75 centimeters, and in C to D here would be 90 centimeters, okay? So like, for example, 1 meter, you're like, you maybe can displace with a wheelchair, but like 75 centimeters, you can't. 90, you are on the very limit of it, okay? And there's decline. Decline, we have like the along track slope and the across track slope. So for the along track, it can be positive and negative, and for incline across, it would be always positive. Okay. So a little bit about the sign, the positive or negative. So it depends on the way that the geometry was being vectorized, was being drawn. So if we like did like this to the lower part to the higher part, it will be positive, okay? But if we do like in the other way, like going from here to there, from the higher part to the lower part, we will have negative uh, negative incline, because for the computer you are always going the direction of the drawing, okay? So in the direction of the drawing, the slope is negative, and in the other case, the slope is positive, okay? So let's move. And there's also things such as comments that you can put that may help, that may be used. For example, you can say that for deaf people in English, you can say that the cinema regularly shows movies in foreign language with subtitles, so it made that room accessible for deaf people. And for example, you can say that some fountain doesn't have a noticeable border. So yeah. So this advice that, for example, it could be you may have like an application like organic maps, and some voice can say that for you. If you are tired, for example, the 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 modality for the blind, for example. But I think that this feature doesn't exist. I'm just have given you an example, okay? So there's the auxiliary tool that we may use to map the accessibility. The one is Mapillary, okay, where you can find terrestrial imagery. So you can download this terrestrial imagery and infer about some properties of the sidewalks, mainly the descriptive ones, okay? Currently, we have no means of measure directly the width from the images, but maybe in some point we would be able. It's possible to use the Mapillary Imagery directly on the ID editor, okay? And sometimes you may have to split sidewalk to then put changing parameters there, okay? Here's it's a wrap up of that's just the same that we saw beforehand. That is the things that we mapped, like so recapping, if you have the access point, we have the ramps and the presence of tactile paving. for the crossings. If there's a semaphore, okay, into the sidewalks, the type of surface, the smoothness, if there's tactile paving, and yeah, if there's tactile paving, okay. So thanks a lot, guys. This was my presentation. This is my profile on GitHub, Cauê Vestena. You can find me generally there, or most places as Cauê Vestena, and also why not by email, cauemv2@gmail.com. Hopefully you guys enjoy the presentation, and if you have any questions, this is the moment for that. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kawe, for the awesome presentation. That was really nice. We have Arnold on the call as well. Arnold, if you have a question, I see you've raised your hand. Please go ahead and speak.
Yeah. For me, the sound is very low.
Arnold, you have to check your audio. We can't hear you. You have to check your microphone.
Yeah, it's like very, very low. I think that now I can hear you. Okay. Hello. Hello. Now I think we can hear you. My question is about the verification of the accessibility of some. If you take the case of the state who are covered by verification, how do you verify that they are good way under that cover? How do you appreciate the engagement of the humans? Oh, luckily, I think that the audio quality it's not good. It would be a problem if you can send by your question by chat, because I think it's the audio quality it's not great. I couldn't pick not too much. Sorry. Sorry for the inconvenience. Sorry, I I I couldn't get it.
Kawe, I'm supposing he's asking about those are the sideways that are under tree cover. If you don't have a street level imagery, how will you identify them?
Then there's the other approaches that you may use. One of them is called, I didn't show here, but one of them is called field papers that you can go on field. You can rely on field measurements, like you print there and you go on the field and you draw where you have a sidewalk, and then you may use the aerial imagery after that, if you can't use the aerial imagery on first place. Okay, so if you have like good aerial imagery, so generally you can map directly on the aerial imagery, and sometimes you can even see the surface type through the aerial imagery. So okay, how do you appreciate the accessibility of streets that are under vegetations? It's like yeah, you may say that generally, if there's large vegetation, you can like saying that the surface, it's you can put the surface grass, and you can put that the smoothness, it's depending on the how high it is, it may ranges from bad to horrible. And sometimes you can put just horrible or very horrible, or even impossible if that condition is in that condition since many years. Like for example, no one could have done that vegetation, and there's probably no one will be doing that. So you may even use impassable. So I think that the most important tag in the case of vegetation is to to put uh, to put the smoothness level of terrible or horrible, and that would apply even for streets. Yeah, not only sidewalks. Sometimes you have a single pathway that would be used for pedestrian displacement, like it's a shared displacement, so you have cars and people walking down there, and you can use the same tags that are being used for sidewalks, you can use for any road. It's important to put in also in the roads, if they are made of concrete, asphalt, uh, or bare ground, and then you can use the smoothness to speak about the quality of that road. Okay, so I think that that is this when there's vegetation. Okay, and uh, if it doesn't have terrestrial imagery, you may use you may like first hand draw the geometries at the office, and then you can print field papers and go with the field papers, and then you put annotations, or okay, this part is made of grass, this part is made of ground, and then after of this you just pick the data and using field papers, and you can use field papers as as background imagery, and then you put the information that you put on the sheet of paper, on the paper sheet, you put on the OpenStreetMap. Hopefully I I understood it correctly and answered it correctly.
Thank you, Kawe. I think we are. It's end of our. We've come to the end of the presentation because of the time frames.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you again. This presentation is on YouTube.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've shared it even on Twitter. I've tagged you.
Oh, amazing. Thanks a lot,
Watch
Walter.
it, can check it out. I will be
Yeah,
reviewing it for any references. So that was a good presentation, and thank you for the session.
perfect. You can call me to present again in other situations. I'm generally available.
Yeah, we are actually doing a project for mapping the transport systems in Nairobi. So I will be reaching out. I've taken your email and I follow your
Perfect.
Twitter, so I can inbox you from Twitter or email you, and then we'll chat more.
Perfect. Just call me, and I'm generally I'm always available to help out.
Thank you very much. That was
Thanks a lot.
session. So I'm going to stop the recording so that we break out from the rooms and see you some
Perfect.
other time.
See you, Walter.